But listen to this. I mean, 6 games in theory doesn't sound bad until you consider you have to pass the Cubs. Okay, easy, theoretically, half game. Miami, they've been awful. They snapped an 8-game losing streak today, but you're 5.5 games behind Miami. Philadelphia's been all right. You're 5.5 games behind Philadelphia. Then the teams that are in the postseason, San Francisco, they've been awful. They're 6 games better than you. Arizona, they've been awful. They're 6 games better than you. Cincinnati right now has won 5 straight. They're 6.5 games better than you. So what's interesting here, Jim, is you're 6 out, which is a lot, and you got to pass teams. You're 6.5 games out of being the top wild card and hosting a playoff series. So 6 out, but 6.5 out from the top wild card spot. It's just a bizarre spot that they're in right now.
It is. And I think we were texting about this today. Like, there's a big possibility that they could get in, and it just would, I think, mask they're going to be a potential bad team that could make the playoffs. Now, if you make the playoffs, you're going to have a good record, or at least a better record than over 500.
Sure.
But it's going to I don't know, man. It would be weird because right now, like you said, the National League wildcard standings are all teams that are just blah. I mean, did you expect the Padres and what the Padres this year to be blah? Now, if they went in the postseason, they made a run, then everything that I just said, who cares? And that's a possibility. I get it. That's a real possibility. You make it as a 6th seed, you can make the World Series. Just saw what happened last year with the Philadelphia Phillies. But man, did we all go in this season not hoping for blah, hope they can make a crazy run as a 6th seed to make the World Series. That's how I felt about this team all year long. And I know that's the goal, to make the playoffs. I get that. But going into the season, that wasn't the goal, to just make it as a 6th seed and hope.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's get to some of these supers, guys. If you're here, if you want to contribute, please subscribe. We just passed 5,100 subscribers, I think, yesterday. So thank you for that. Pushing towards hopefully 6,000 at some point this season. If you want to contribute and support our work, you can click the $ below the chat box, like our buddy Jose. Jose, thank you for the very generous super. He says, this season is such a crazy parallel right now to my Lakers last season. Teasing me with a 500 record, the West being bad, which helped us, then becoming great. After the trade deadline, I like that comp a lot. I really do. I mean, they started 2-11. Obviously, in the NBA, 10 teams make the postseason in each conference, kind of, with the play-in tournament. But they had some of the best players in the sport, in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, in the postseason. Obviously, it's hard to compare baseball to basketball, but I do like the comp. I do think the Padres have talent, like the Lakers had talent. I do think it's possible. I think it might be a little more uphill for the Padres, to be honest, because you got to pass multiple teams to get in. Where the Lakers, with 10 teams in the West, I mean, they probably have to pass multiple teams, but make up a game or two. And San Diego's got to make up 6 games, which is, it's a pretty big number. I think in the last 62 games, Jim, you're probably looking at something like 40-22, 39-23 to get in. 39-23 gets you to 87 wins, which is what it took last year to get to the postseason. So I think you're looking at probably something like 39-23 to get in, which, again, isn't impossible, but the way they've played this year would be pretty improbable.
Yeah. How would you label this team? Do you think it's a good team playing bad baseball or just a bad team?
I think it's a bad team playing bad baseball. I think it's a bad team. I don't think they're a bad team playing bad baseball. I think they've been a bad team. I think it's a great question. They're just bad. I mean, I can't put it other than that. At 48-52, they've had so many chances to pick themselves off the mat, and to be one of 2 teams without a winning streak longer than 3 games all year is ridiculous. It's crazy.
I guess, yeah. And what I'm trying to say is, and it won't happen because it just wouldn't, but hypothetical, if you took this exact same team and restarted this season over again, would they still be in this position, or would they be just a little better, or would they be a lot better?
It's a great question. That goes back to my 2024 theory, which is this thing is screwy. Maybe in the end they somehow learn from it. And I don't know if they do or not. Top down, like Preller, and how you build a roster, team, and how you come out ready to go, even when you have superstar talent. And maybe you're just better in 2024. It's back to my theory on why I wouldn't move Juan Soto, because I think they could be a lot better in 2024, even if 2023 doesn't work out. But I mean, it's a good question. I mean, the way they've played is like a bad team. They lose close games. They cannot hit in the clutch. They've blown leads. I mean, they play with no real, I don't
Urgency.
know, urgency. Exactly. And they're just helter skelter. They can look really good one day and really bad the next. And they're the opposite of consistent. And that's why they're 48 and 52.
And it's one of it's a question that I ask myself, that team happens to squeak in the postseason, like, and say they don't win it all. Is it good for the team, like the overall franchise? Because then they might view it differently, or would they view it that I think they should view it and be like, yeah, this ain't good enough. Like, we can't spend all this money to just squeak in. And that would result in, I'm not saying Preller needs like being fired at that point, but like, hey, we need to really think hard about this roster construction, because we can't spend this money to just squeak in, even though it's great to put down on the paper, like, hey, we made the postseason in back-to-back years. Like, but it has to be better. It just does.
Yeah, it's a hard conversation now with baseball because, again, if you get in like the Phillies did and you're in the World Series, I mean, nobody in Philadelphia looks at last year as anything other than that, I would say. And they won 87 games.
Mm-hmm. No,
Um,
yeah, and it's,
and the Dodgers won 110 plus,
yeah,
and they lost to the
the sport
Padres.
is really is the sport is the weirdest sport of them all, man. It really is. You can have the most talent in baseball, and you probably sometimes don't even get out of the first round. You go in 115 games, and you in the first round of the postseason.
Right.
It's not basketball. It's not football. Like, it's just a different weird game that if you get hot at the right time, doesn't really matter what your record is, But to always just bank on that being hot at the right time stuff, that's hard.
It is hard. I mean, we need to talk. I mean, what's important here is what are they going to do? I mean, what's not important is what happened today. I mean, what happened today is they looked like the Padres. They were 1 for 6 with men in scoring position. They didn't score. So they
Yeah,
either
it's
blow
just
someone out or they look bad. That's who they are. What's important is like, what are they going to do? They have a week to figure it out. Literally, 7 games, I think, if you include game 1 of the Colorado series. But you would think they'd make some determinations potentially, in the next 3-4 days in terms of what they're going to do. Now, Bob Nightingale writing today, and he's been really low on the Padres.
yeah.
He writes, says the Padres, much more than the Mets, still seem delusional, thinking they will get back into the race.
Mm-hmm.
They've been a mediocre team all year, and nothing is going to magically change in the second half. They should swallow their pride and trade all-star outfielder Juan Soto, getting back at least some of the value in the prospects they traded away in the first place to land him from the Nationals. Yet there's been no hint that he's available. They instead are likely to shop all-star closer Josh Hader and starter Blake Snell, barring a sudden and dramatic winning streak. Now, remember, this is what they have to come, Jim. They've got Pittsburgh, Texas. Rangers have had their best 100 games in franchise history, by the way. So they have Pittsburgh, who
Bob's
swept
choking
you.
me up there.
I know you're getting choked up. Pittsburgh swept San Diego whenever, not long ago. So maybe some revenge. And then Texas, who's been really good, then 1 game in Colorado before the deadline. Let's say things go really well and you go 5-2. That would be pretty good, right? 5-2 against the Rangers and the Pirates at a road game in Colorado. I think most people would take 5-2 any week. They'd be under 500. Probably be 5 games out of a playoff spot, let's say, maybe 4.5. At that point, obviously, they're going to buy. And again, it goes back to that, like, is it the right decision to make or not? Now, I still think they'll probably buy, Jim. They go 4-3 over the next 7 games. They're 3 games under 500, but they're going to draw 3 million people. And like you said a moment ago, like Seidler and Preller, they're so committed to this team at $250 million in payroll. I think the only scenario where they don't, I think the only scenario where Hader and Snell go is where they're 6, 7, 8 games still out, 4, 5, 6, 7 days from now. So that would be my scenario for them. Now, I think they should go. I would sell. If I was in charge, I would sell. I think it's better for the franchise in 2024. I think that this isn't happening in 2023. I hope to be proven wrong. But I think they'll chase it down. I just don't know if it's the wise decision.
And real quick to this great friends in the chat here. Bro, you did not hear what I said. I didn't say I would be upset to make the playoffs. I would be upset if they just squeak into the playoffs and they happen to lose in the first round and them thinking that's good. Like, okay, making the playoffs, that's great. Well, fine, whatever. But the standard's different. So if you think that I'd be upset they make the playoffs, you're absolutely wrong. I just think that they're thinking if they squeak in at 86 or 87 wins, would be like, we're a great team when you had to go through hell and back in a regular season that should not have been the way it should have been.
Well, I think it would depend on what happens once they get in.
That's what I said. Like
Yeah.
if they make the postseason and if they happen to lose right away in the wild card
Right.
round,
Then it's not going to be great.
then it won't be great at all. It will not be great at all. And Bob Nightingale, I think, is completely clueless on this. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I think he's just
When it
looking at
comes
a
to
record.
Soto, you're saying?
Yeah, I just think he's looking at a record and not looking deeper. And 0% chance they trade off Snell, or excuse me,
No, Soto.
Soto.
Yeah.
I think at this point in time, after this last week, to see how mid the rest of the National League is, I don't even think they trade off Snell, and I don't think they trade off Hader. I
agree
really
with
don't.
you.
I think I think they keep, and if anything, they buy. I just do, because they're looking at the rest of the National League and being like, this isn't it. Now, they aren't it either, but they're going to put themselves in a mindset that, well, we have a shot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, if they lose 2 out of 3 at home to Pittsburgh, don't put it past them. They did it to Kansas City. They did it to Washington. If they lose 2 out of 3 at home to Pittsburgh, again, you got to basically something has to happen for the organization to go one way or the other. That's my problem with middling. I said the worst thing they could do over this like last 13 games and go 8-5 and be like 3 games under 500. Be like, hey, we're playing good baseball. You're 3 games under 500. You either go 11-2 or you go 4-7, because then you're basically telling your organization what to do. I think if they come out and go 2-5 over the next 7, they're not buying anything.
Yeah.
But I think if they go 5-2 over the next 7, maybe they are buying. And to your point, the National League is so mid, so to speak, that maybe 5-2 over the next 7 games puts you within 4 or 5 games, and you can actually make a serious run at this thing in the second half.